Tim, the final four locked in: Australia, India, South Africa, New Zealand. Run us through it, my friend.
Got one wrong, didn't we?
Foolishly
went against the New Zealanders, who we did talk about at the start, Brent, have a freakish ability to punch above their weight in the big tournaments, and they've done it again. So far, their form's been a bit patchy leading into the semis. But again, I think Pakistan, they are such a disappointing side for the talent they've got. They do lack a high-quality spin. I saw that somewhere, might have been Michael Vaughan mentioned yesterday. They lack that high-quality spinner, and if they can find one, they've got every other base covered. But they just find a way. I'm trying to think of a footy team. They're a bit like Essendon. They find a way to let their fans down every year. And every year we keep coming back thinking Pakistan have got so much talent. Essendon are that good. And then we just cannot get it done when it counts. And Pakistan have managed to do it again, but yeah, I think the four best teams, Brent, are there. Looking forward to two huge semi-finals. I think India obviously had a massive win last night, but again, I'm not sure I'd like to be playing New Zealand. They find a way. They seem to. Well, certainly we spoke about it. They punch above their weight, but pressure doesn't get to them. And India are going to have enormous amount of pressure on them.
Surely they can't.
Expectation, mate. They're a better team. There's more talent, but New Zealand will make them play very, very well to beat them. If India have half an off day, New Zealand will be there to take the opportunity. I can guarantee you that. They've just done it time and time again, and it seems to be the bigger the game, the better they play.
Be some sort of story going through undefeated and losing the semi. We saw it in the SFL this year, Tim. It can happen. Finals are a funny thing.
World Cups, it's World Championships. You have to perform. You can win 50 in a row. Doesn't matter. AFL preliminary final weekend, they're the hardest games to win. The World Cup semi-final is the same thing. Hardest game to win that they'll play in this year. And as I said, if they make any errors, New Zealand will be all over them. And as I said, the weight of expectation on India is like no other country. Home World Cup, the most supported team in the history of sport, I reckon, just about. And everyone is expecting them to win in their home country. So there's a huge amount of pressure and expectation on them to perform. They're used to it. They've done it plenty of times before. But as I said, I wouldn't write New Zealand off. When is this first semi?
So they're playing Wednesday, and then we play Thursday. What do you see our 11 looking like? As I said, Maxwell and Stark will come back in. So who drops out?
It's hard to tell with outseeing conditions. I think the conditions are going to be really, really important on what way we go. I think obviously Maxi comes back in. Stark comes back in for Abbott straight away. And then I'm just going conditions based out of Marnus and Marcus Stoinis.
That makes sense.
I just think with Stoin's playing in this all-rounder position, but he's bowled like 15 or 16 overs for the World Cup. So if he's not going to bowl as much as I think he probably should or could, and I think there's a real opportunity. We've spoken about it earlier in the World Cup, Brent. We are struggling to take new ball wickets because we're not swinging the ball. We're not moving the ball. It doesn't matter how fast you bowl on really good wickets if you can't get the ball off the straight. So hopefully Mitchell Stark can swing the ball early. That's a huge key to us. But that's where I'm using Marcus Stoinis. I said it right back at the start. Give him the new ball for 2 or 3 overs and see if he can just swing it around. And if he can get it off the straight, we might get a wicket or two. If we're going to go down that path and use him with the new ball, then I'm picking him ahead of Marnus. If we're not going to use him with the ball or bowl him a few overs around the 40th, I'm not picking him. I'm picking Marnus and batting as deep as I possibly can. And if we go that way, then I'm giving Pat Cummins the new ball from the other end for Mitchell Stark, and Josh Hazlewood can keep doing what he's doing. He'll bowl beautifully no matter where you use him. I like Paddy Cummins to Quinton de Kock, and he is the key wicket in this semi-final. If we can get him out, I like Pat. With a brand new ball, if Pat can come around the wicket and actually swing or seam the ball away from him, I think he can nick him off. Hazlewood bowls more so from over the wicket and tries to swing in and occasionally go across him. I think de Kock quite likes that shape. So Stark back in. Stoinis stays in if they use him with the new ball, if that's a role they see him. For me, if he's not, he goes out and we stick with Marnus and bring Maxwell in to obviously bowl the overs that he's bowled for us really, really well throughout the World Cup.
Just before we move on, what did you make of the thing I texted you through the other night? Mitchell Starc was there keeping in the warm-up to the quicks with the gloves on, and he was criticised. I think it was Matthew Hayden that had an issue with it. What's your thought on that?
I think there was a few people that had an issue with it, and I don't understand why. I do understand why, but it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Mitchell Starc, players all around the world in a warm-up will go out and take balls from the other guys whilst they're warming up. They're not bowling 160 k's, they're just warming up. Now, normally they would do it with a baseball mitt. So you tell me, what's safer? Him catching them with wicket-keeping gloves on? Given his background, Mitchell Starc is a junior wicket-keeper as well, which people probably don't know. So he sees that as a safer option than going out and catching it with a baseball mitt, which he's never done.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, again, we like to make something out of nothing. He could have got injured doing anything. He would have trained from the game that he had, his last game until the semi-final. He'd be taking high balls. He'd be throwing, diving, sliding, sprinting, everything for the next week. He could get injured doing anything. In India, Christ, how many accidents are there with tuk-tuks running into buses? And does he need injured doing anything?
Does he need to do it at all, though? What you got 1,000 staff there at Cricket Australia game. There's people in those uniforms everywhere. Surely someone else can do it, and he can just
so what happens if Brent, you're the media
manager,
head of media manager, and they say, hey, yes, Brent, can you go out there and just catch a couple of balls with the mitt? And one bounces a bit more than you think because, as we've touched on a lot on this show, you're not as athletically gifted as a professional athlete, and it hits you in the face and cracks your skull.
Not talking about the media manager, but surely, okay. I don't know, is there someone...
the others are doing other stuff.
Okay. That's my question to you, Tim.
So it's either a player or a staff member who is a physiotherapist or a doctor or the media manager. And that is more dangerous. Mitchell Starc can go out and catch a few balls. There's no difference between catching bowlers coming through and him getting smacked high balls at him, or he's practicing catching at cover, or he's getting nicks without gloves. It's just something, we're trying to make something out of nothing.
What about Adam Zampa? I want to talk to you about him. Unbelievable tournament, leading wicket taker, of course. He's only the second Aussie spinner to take 22 or more wickets in a World Cup. Lynn Fulston in 1982 is the other. And it's an incredible turnaround, really, after Nathan Lyon took his spot in England in 2019.
Yeah, and even given probably the issues he had at the start of the tournament, he said himself he had some stuff going on with his body, was letting him down a little bit. And then not being able to train as much as he would have liked. He wasn't as confident in what he was delivering from a skill point of view either. So, to turn it around, he has been a massive reason we've gone on that run of 7 wins in a row. He stood up in I think it was the third game and grabbed the team on his back, really. And as he said, to take 20-odd wickets in a World Cup is a huge effort. Given... that we needed him to fire as well, given the World Cup's in India, it's spinner-friendly conditions, if you like. So he would have had, again, a lot of expectation on him to deliver. I think after the outside of those first 2 games, he has been sensational.
What about the quality of the World Cup itself? Some say it goes too long. Do we need to have more games on the same day so it's a shorter tournament? And do you think 50-over cricket's back because of the World Cup? It's just, it sort of disappears out of people's thoughts. But then a World Cup comes around and it seems everyone's back on board, especially because we've done pretty well.
Yeah, I've loved this World Cup. I don't know about you. It's certainly captured my attention. I'm obviously a bit of a cricket nuffy, but I've enjoyed watching most of the games, albeit a lot of them have been a little bit batter-friendly for my liking. But, I think it's captured the imagination a bit. And in terms of 50-over cricket, I think it has brought it back a little bit. However, I don't think 50-over cricket needs to be played as much as what it has been. But certainly more important games, Champions Trophies, World Cups, stuff like that. You can see it's still a hugely popular game, certainly over in India.